Hi there and welcome. My name is Jordan and today I'll be sharing my birth story. If you don't already know, I have two children, a little girl and a little boy, and I've given birth both times at home, and this is the story of my first child, my positive home birth story, and I hope you enjoy it. It's going to be a lot of fun for me reflecting on her birth. I'm sure there's a few things that I'll forget, and I'll try my best to remember everything, but it was a while ago. I think I should preface by saying I was overdue. I was 40 weeks and a day short of being 41 weeks when my daughter was born. So I went into labor when I was 40 weeks and 4 days. And leading up to that point, I had thought every day I'm gonna have my baby. Like, I thought this starting like 36 weeks, I'm gonna have my baby like anytime. But that was not the case for me. I did go overdue. And then I got to the point where I thought, I'm never gonna have my baby. I'm just always gonna be pregnant. And I really thought that was a possibility. I just wasn't going to have my baby because it seemed like it was never happening. And maybe I was a little bit nervous to give birth. So maybe that's why she stayed in a little longer. Or maybe she's just cooking. She ended up being a pretty big baby. But okay, so I was 40 weeks and 4 days, and that night I slept soundly. I actually snored at night, and I never ever snore, but I guess it woke my husband up and he was like, oh, like that's so weird she's snoring, but I guess I was like heavy sleeping, snoring. And then early in the morning, I think it was like 4 o'clock, I just woke up and I felt like a little psst, like that, like kind of feeling in my belly. I didn't notice my water had broken, like it wasn't wet anywhere. But then I just had this intuitive knowing like my water just broke. And so I waddled over to the bathroom. I was huge at this point. I waddled over to the bathroom, and as soon as I got to the bathroom floor, my water broke. And I yelled over to my husband, who was just on the bed, like we have a bathroom in our bedroom. And I said, like, my water just broke. And he woke up, he's like, what? My water broke, what? And I was like, my water just broke? He's like, are you sure? It's like, yes, I'm sure. I'm like, go get a towel. And so he got up and he got me like a hand towel, and I went over to the bathroom, to the toilet, and the rest of my water came out. My midwife had given me like this swab stick, and it's to test that it is for sure amniotic fluid, because I guess when you're further along you can have like accident, like go to the bathroom, like potty. But it was amniotic fluid. It did turn blue, so I called my midwife. She said call her if there's any signs of anything. So I called my midwife, I told her. So she ended up coming over very shortly after, and we talked about all the exciting things, what happened. I told her that I was surprised that the water, when your water breaks, was a lot warmer than I thought it was going to be. It was like, I thought it felt hot. I wasn't expecting that. I also thought it had like a sweet Cheerio smell. Maybe that's just my hyper senses, like when you are further along having your baby, and when your baby is born especially, your senses are like hyper aware. So maybe it was just that. But I do remember that being something I was surprised about. And then I asked her to check me. My midwife doesn't check unless you ask. I asked her to check me, and I was only 2 centimeters dilated. And I was so bummed out because I thought, surely if I am this far along, I must have been dilating, over the past week when I was 40 weeks. But no, I was just 2 centimeters dilated. And she asked if I wanted her to sweep my membranes, which is when they put like their finger between, I think, your cervix and the amniotic sac, and they sweep around, and it just is supposed to like trigger labor to come on, because I was having no contractions at this time, just my water had broken. And I told her, yeah, like, yes, that was fine with me. So she did do that. It was uncomfortable. It was not painful, but it was uncomfortable. That happened. She left, and I was supposed to have an appointment later that day. She said, like, just plan on everything going as normal. Like, if labor like starts up, you can still come to your appointment if you feel you're able, or you can just settle in. You're gonna give birth to your baby fairly soon. So we were going to play it by ear, but to plan on going to my appointment. So my midwife had left, and my husband went to go get us breakfast at Starbucks and brought it back home, and we were just so excited. And my midwife had recommended we go back to sleep, but I just couldn't. I was so excited, like my baby was coming as my first baby. Like I could not wait. I was gonna stay awake, and I was gonna like wait for these contractions. I was so excited. And then sure enough, 2 hours later, my contractions started, and they were very light, like little like period cramp contractions. And I'm like, oh, I've got this. This is not going to be a big deal. Like, I'm tough. I know I can handle this. Um, and so I was excited, and I was just waiting for my contractions to get more intense, and I was ready for them. And they did slowly pick up, and I called my mom to tell my mom because I wanted her to drive from out of state to come be with me during my labor. And then I called my grandma, and my aunt ended up being with her. And I was telling my grandma, and I would go through my contractions and talk to them between like my contractions when I was having a break. And at that point, I couldn't talk through my contractions, or it was uncomfortable. Like it just seemed more intense if I tried. Yeah, like I was so excited, and it would take my mom about 3 hours, a little bit more to get here. And my husband was updating the midwife, like how often my contractions were happening, like how long they were. And my midwife said she didn't really need to know that information, but everything like you hear or you listen to is like, that's so important, like how close they are together, how long they are. But my midwife, she's so experienced, and I should have listened to her because really that doesn't mean anything. They could be close together and long, and it still be a long time. But anyways, my husband was texting her, and I think she got the impression when he was texting her that like we really thought things were going to happen quickly, and maybe that she should be here just to support us. And we were so young and excited and didn't really know what to do. So my midwife said she was going to come over, and she was coming with her nurses. One nurse and then another one ended up coming later on. But so it actually seemed much quicker than it was. And I think that's a reoccurring part of my birth story is I thought things were happening very quickly, but really there was a long time between each phase. But for me, it was like boom, 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 like it was happening. And I was very in it, and I started to like moan a little bit through my contractions and doing, what you hear online you're supposed to. And my husband was whispering in my ear, telling me I was doing such a good job. I was so strong. And my midwife got here. Oh, and right before that, I had told my husband, like, honey, like, I think it's going to happen fast. Like, it's starting to get intense. And then my midwife came, and I told my husband to get the birth pool ready because I wasn't sure if I wanted to give birth in the pool or not, but I wanted it there in case I wanted it. And so I told him, get the birth pool ready. And so my midwife came, and she listened to me go through some contractions, and I think she knew it was going to be a while. And she had to do like the Doppler. He listened to baby's heartbeat during my contractions like once every 30 minutes. And yeah, so I just like labored like that. And then like right after my midwife got here, my mom was here. And like I said, it was supposed to be like 3.5 hours for her to get here. And so I was surprised she was here already. And then the nurse was here when my midwife got here. And I was just going through these contractions, and I was like kind of like moaning to myself, not very loudly, but just like kind of in the zone moaning. But I did everything I could to stay comfortable during my labor, and maybe that's something I would not recommend. But I think you have to do what feels right in the moment. But yeah, I would just try to stay comfortable. If like I would turn this way and it didn't feel good, like I was not going to do that. I was in the birth pool for a bit, and Like I felt like that was going really well, but my contractions actually slowed down in there. So I did go to my birth pool too soon. But I was just going through those contractions. My husband was so sweet. He got in the birth pool with me and he was rubbing my back. My back hurt so much during these contractions, and it wasn't like a pain. It was like just so intense, like the pressure in my back. So in the pool, I was just going through these contractions. My mom was putting a wet washcloth over my head, and there was a point where I felt like I'm gonna throw up. I feel really nauseous. And my mom, she got a bucket and she was holding it like so close to me that she was choking me with the bucket. And I just like mustered up all the strength to like, you're choking me. Because it like talking during like your contractions in between, like for me just seemed like an impossible task. And when I finally could, I just like yelled it, blurted it out, like, you're choking me. And then she lowered the bowl. I didn't end up throwing up, but I felt very nauseous for a little bit. My midwife is so sweet. She was giving me like peppermint to smell, and yeah, and also in the birth pool, I just felt really hot. Like I was very sweaty and very hot, and I didn't want that water like splashing on me. And so every time my husband would move, I would tell him, stop moving. Like the water's so hot. But little did I know the water was actually really cold, and my husband was freezing cold and he had to go to the bathroom so bad. But he just sat there very still in the birth pool to not disturb me, which is funny because I guess I was in there for hours. I did not realize I was in there for hours. To me, I thought maybe 40 minutes, but yeah, so he was really going through it. And then my midwife, nothing was really happening in the birth pool, so she suggested I get out and move around, maybe try a different position. And so I went over to the bathroom to like get that wet clothes off of me and sit on the toilet. I felt very comfortable sitting on the toilet. My mom was right there in front of me. My husband was to the side of me, and I was just like, oh, like going through my contractions. And my midwife suggested I turn around with my, like facing the back of the toilet like this over the toilet. And for me, I was really surprised, but that like mentally, I felt very lonely when I was facing the back of the toilet. And that was not a good like mental space for me to be in. And I'm really surprised that that happened. I think that labor is all a mental game. Like you have to be so mentally prepared and like powerful to like overcome your contractions. And when you feel alone or any sort of insecurity sneaks up, I think it makes it a little more intense. And so I knew like I did not want to be in that position. So right away I changed positions back facing the other way on the toilet, you know how you normally do. And I felt really great doing that, sitting there on the toilet like that. I eventually made it over back to the bedroom somehow. I don't even remember, but I guess I was in the bathroom for hours too, and I also thought I was just in the bathroom for 40 minutes, but I guess I was there for a while. I ended up coming back into my room, trying to remember like the funny or like the little things of my labor. It was a while ago. But yeah, I came back to my room, and my like midwife, well, she's a midwife now, but at the time she was like a doula and the midwife's assistant. She came and she was just so wonderful. You can tell that birth work is like she's so meant for it. And my midwife too. She's such an angel. But when my midwife who used to be a doula came, she just was so in tune with what I needed in every moment. And she suggested I have a space with just me and my husband. And so I sat in here with just him for a while I was laying down. And we just had like a moment together. And my husband, I guess he felt very abandoned, like he didn't know what to do. Also, this reminds me, I think I'm maybe getting a little bit out of order in my head, but before we had like the big moment of us, just the two of us in the room, I was in here laboring. I don't even remember what position I was in, but I must have been laying on the bed. I don't remember. But I was just so hot. I just felt like these hot flashes coming over me. I know, I was in the bathroom. I was in our master bathroom. And I just felt these hot flashes like kept coming over me. Every single contraction, so intense. And I was so hot. And so my midwife had gotten a bowl of water, cold water, with rags, and they were, every time I'd get a contraction, they would put one on me and hold it there, and then they would switch it with another one that was in the cold water. But they had decided that I needed space with just my husband and I, and so they had gone, I think, to the dining room or something. And my husband felt very abandoned, like he had to rotate the water and it wasn't cold enough. And so he was like really helping me. He was really my rock during my labor. He was there every single step. He never took a moment away from me until the right towards the end. He finally took a moment to himself, but he was just right there with me the whole time. And I was in the bathroom. They were very intense. I was getting the cold washcloth. I asked for the TENS machine. If you don't know what a TENS machine is, it's awesome. It's like these little patches you stick on your back, because I was experiencing back labor. They're like these patches you stick on your back, and they do like an electrical current. I don't know, it's supposed to like massage your back. But I cranked that thing up every time I had a contraction. I cranked it all the way up as far as the machine would go, and it would just barely do it for me, where it would kind of I don't know if it like would like avert my attention to, I don't know, but it worked really great. But yeah, so at first my husband was controlling the TENS machine. Every time I'd have a contraction, he'd start turning it up for me, and that was not working for me because he was not turning it high enough. So I took it and I turned it all the way up, and he was like, oh wow. And so I did that, and I loved that TENS machine. I did not want to let go of that TENS machine. My midwives had suggested I get back in the birth pool. It was getting dark now, and I did not want to go in the birth pool because I needed to have that TENS machine with me. It was helping me so much. So I did not get back in the birth pool. I was not going to let go of that TENS machine. And it started to get dark outside, and I thought, there's certainly not, like, it's nighttime right now. But it was 6 o'clock by the time I had finally realized the time. Like, the whole day had gone by, and I was just laboring, nothing was really happening. My midwife checked me again, and I was only 6 centimeters. And so it had been all day, and I'm trying to remember. They had asked, like, have I eaten anything? I was like, no, I had breakfast this morning. I haven't had anything. And so they gave me some honey under my tongue, and it was like a big glob of honey, just to give me like a boost. And I was not that excited about it. They tried to give me more, but my husband was my advocate. He's like, I don't think she really liked that, and I did not want any more. I was very concerned that I would throw up when I was having my baby, and I did not want that. I don't really know why I felt so strongly that I did not want to throw up, but that was just something I really did not want to have happen. And yeah, so my husband was also very much an advocate for me, because the nurse, she kept trying to like do the Doppler on me throughout this whole time, like every 30 minutes like she's supposed to, but she would always come at like the worst time. And so my husband got to the point where he's like, honey, are you okay if she like uses the Doppler right now, or should we wait till the next one, or whatever he was saying. And that was very nice and helpful, because sometimes it was just like, this is not good timing. Do not use that Doppler. But it just was very irritating to me, and like wasn't like in a comfortable position. But yeah, so he's just so sweet. He really is just the sweetest guy. But yeah, so I was laboring, nothing seemed to really be happening. And then my doula, who's now midwife, was the midwife's assistant. She said, oh, like maybe baby's not in the best position. Like, let's try the peanut ball. And if you've given birth before and you've had to use the peanut ball, maybe you know, but I did not like that peanut ball. It's like this blow up ball that you put your one leg over and like kind of between your legs, and it's supposed to open your hips, and that was very uncomfortable. And looking back on it, my daughter was definitely stuck in my hips on one side, and I think that's why it was so uncomfortable when she could finally get the space to turn, but it was just like she was turning against my bones. um, that's one thing like that really stood out to me in my birth, that I really hated that peanut ball, and I never ever wanted it again. But really, like, labor was very manageable. It just was like that mental game where you have to remind yourself, like, it's just this one contraction, it's gonna get to a peak and then it goes back away and you get a break. But it is manageable. I was really surprised that I thought labor was going to be more painful than it actually was. Um, but my labor did last a very long time. So I did the peanut ball, they went away again, they gave me space with just my husband and I. And really, at that point, I started to feel sorry for myself. I didn't want to be like, I felt alone again. I wanted people in my room. I just wanted to have them by me. And I think that just is who I am as a person usually anyways, is I like to be in the group. I don't want to be the center of attention, but I like to have people around me. That's where I feel safe and comfortable. Um, so they came back in my room and they just sat with me, and it was so nice. Uh, and then I told them, like, I can't do it, like I can't. And they're like, yes, you can. I said, no, I can't. They're like, yes, you can. You're doing it. And they just were so like reassuring. They also did not give in to my little pity party, which I was surprised about. Like, they did not feel sorry for me. Like, they just knew I could do it. They had complete confidence. And I'm so thankful that they responded to me in that way, where they kind of ignored it, like, yes, you can, and then kind of ignored it, because I think that gave me strength. Like, oh, I guess they've been to so many births. Like, if they think I can do it, like, they know that I can, and that gave me strength. So them kind of giving me the cold shoulder about that surprisingly helped me get through it. And I just stopped my little pity party, and then I started making these like different grunts. So that must have been like my transition phase. And that's when you get into the next stage of labor where it gets a little more intense. And when I was there, like the midwife assistant's like, I can hear that you're making different sounds now. Do you feel like pushing? And I was like, I think so. And so, like, just naturally, I just wanted to push. It wasn't like full on pushing, but I just felt like I wanted to push during each contraction. It just felt comfortable. I definitely started pushing way too early because I pushed for hours. I really pushed for hours. It took a very long time, and I think I just didn't know. I don't think it was that I didn't know. I think I was scared to give birth. Like, if you have seen some of my other videos, I have lichen sclerosis, and I had a huge fear around giving birth. I was very afraid that I would just rip open and everything was just going to be very awful. And so I think that fear, and I think I had too many people, that kept me from having my baby. There's a lot to your environment and your mental space, and I think that's what kept my baby in for a long time. Uh, so, yep, I was pushing for hours, and then my midwife got to the point, she said, this baby needs to come out, because it had been a very long time. Like, we were getting close to midnight, and she said this baby needs to come out, and so she's like doing the counting, pushing, which is something I didn't really want, but I think she's just reminding me like this baby really needs to come out. And I think that had to do with my water had broken early in the morning, and I think you can only go a certain amount of time with it being broken without the baby being delivered. She didn't say that's what was going on, but I think that's what was going on, because she was very sure that this baby needed to come out now. So yep, I was just like really trying hard to get my baby out. Again, I was really surprised that my contractions were not as painful as I had thought they were going to be, like they show on TV, where it's just like this big, like, I don't know, intense, like screaming, yelling, like contractions. It wasn't like that. It was like I had this big mama bear like growl kind of to me. I guess that's how I'd explain it. I was loud in the sense that I was like growling, but not screaming, not like you see on TV. And it was like just like the power of your contractions, or at least for me, like took over my voice, and it just was like this deep growl I would do every time I would have a contraction and I would be bearing down. And I did that, and then I got to the point where baby started to come, and like my poor husband too. I like turned to him and I was like pushing like right in his face for a while. And you know, he's so sweet. He just didn't mind at all, and he was just right there with me the whole time right here. And yeah, so I like was not crowning for a long time, but like baby would come and you could see baby, and then baby would go back up, and then baby would come and then go back up like that. And your body does that naturally to help soften the way, let your tissues slowly stretch to accommodate your baby coming through. And so that was happening for a long time. And then my midwife realized like she thinks that I needed assistance with baby coming out, and my midwife never ever gives episiotomies. She gave one just recently before I had given birth to my baby. She had just given her first episiotomy, and she's been in practice for a very long time. And her and I had talked about episiotomies because I wanted to have an episiotomy if my scars from lichen sclerosis were opening up, and that was very important to me that that was an option. So that is something we had talked a lot about, and she said maybe we should do an episiotomy. What do you think? And I told her yes, like we can do the episiotomy, because again I was so scared with my lichen sclerosis that I would just rip open and like all would be lost. So she during a contraction she did a little snip, and I didn't feel it at all, but it wasn't enough of a snip in the right spot or something, where she did have to do another one, and she did it right at the end of like one of my contractions, and I did feel that. I went, and I yelled her name, and that was the only moment that my husband wasn't there. That was the one moment he went to just take a minute to himself, because it had been a very long time, all day long, that I had been in labor, and that was the only moment he stepped away. And I think that my midwife knew that that was the moment to do it, because we had talked previously, because my husband, he won't admit it, but he definitely would have fainted, which is so funny. And so, but I guess he came like running down the hallway right away to be right with me again. And then shortly after that, I ended up delivering my daughter. Her head came, and then I had another contraction. And usually after your second contraction, after your baby's head is born, also with that, when I was crowning, baby's head was crowning like the ring of fire. It was very intense feeling, and I wanted that feeling to just be gone. My midwives, they were so sweet. They were doing like counter pressure with a hot washcloth and just really trying to take care of me. But I wanted that feeling to be done with, and so I just pushed through. And you are not supposed to do that. I do not recommend it. I definitely tore more because I pushed through that feeling instead of letting my body stretch, because that's your body's signal to like, whoa, take it back a bit, take your time, let your body stretch so that you don't tear. But I definitely pushed through that, and I definitely made my episiotomy worse by doing that. But so my daughter's head was born, and then usually on your second push after that, your baby is just born. But my daughter, she was so big that my second push afterwards, then only her chest came out. And then she started crying. And then on my third push, then the rest of baby came out. And my midwife said, like, reach down and pick up your baby. Like, you can grab her now. And I said, no, I can't, because I couldn't, because I have a very long torso, and I tried and I just couldn't reach all the way where she was. And I think I was also nervous to like move my body. I didn't know really like that you can move your body after having a baby. Like, you can even stand up. I had no idea. But they gave her to me right away, and she just snuggled into me, and I was so excited, and I just was so happy to have my little girl with me. And right away I turned to my husband and I was like, aren't you going to kiss your baby? And she had just come out, like, you know, with my midwives, they don't wipe your baby down or anything. And everyone looked at him like, but sure enough, he kissed her right away, and it just was such a magical time. And if you've had your first child, you know it is so special, holding your baby for the first time, meeting your little one, and you are just so like in love already. Like, those hormones just flood over you, and you just, I don't know, it's like your vibration just rises, and you just love everyone around you so much. It was like I felt this like extreme love for everyone for like a few days after my birth. It just really is such a wonderful moment in your life, to welcome your baby. I'm so happy that I had my first child at home. I just felt so safe, and I knew that my midwives were going to take care of me. My husband was there, my mom was there with me, and I just got to snuggle in bed and hold my baby the rest of the night. It was really wonderful. My husband, he cut the umbilical cord. They put this like root, I don't know, like powder on her umbilical cord, and it just helps it heal up faster. And it was just a really wonderful experience. I highly recommend home birth if you're able to. Yeah, I would not have it any other way. And I just love my daughter so much, and I just am so thankful for that experience. And I'm so thankful that I delivered at home, especially considering that I have lichen sclerosis, because I knew that she would really nurture me, and she wouldn't push me too much. Because I think if I would have been in the hospital, and she ended up telling me this a few days later, that if I had been in the hospital, they definitely would have done interventions because of how long it took. I didn't even tell you, it ended up taking 20 hours. From the very beginning to the end, it was 20 hours. And yeah, so she did say that if I had been in the hospital, they definitely would have done interventions. And I'm just so thankful that I listened to like my heart and did a home birth and had such a loving birth team with me that really knew what they were doing. So going back to the very end of my birth, so the placenta. Um, so baby comes out, you're nursing baby, just like all these wonderful, loving baby, and then you have the job of getting your placenta out. And that is what they call the afterbirth. My midwife came to me and she said, okay, now it's time to get the placenta out. Can you give me a push? And so I tried to give her a push. And then she said, give me another one. And so I like did that. And it took me like a few pushes to get my placenta to come. And I think it's because I had an episiotomy, but that really was uncomfortable. And my midwife, she's so sweet. Before I delivered my placenta, she did cover me in lidocaine, and I think it's because I tore, and that is just to make it like not as painful. But delivering the placenta was very uncomfortable for me, and I think it's because I tore, and it just is like going against your tear and like stretching it back out. It was not comfortable. And I was also surprised at how big it was when it was coming out. Like, it was really big. I had to push hard to get that thing out. Um, but then it came out and all was great. Like I said, my husband cut the cord. He did skin to skin with her. We chose to do the vitamin K drops, so I let my mom do the vitamin K drops. Um, and then my midwives, they like tucked me into bed and made sure everything was fine, and they left. And it was so sweet. We've realized afterwards my midwife had like done our laundry. Like it just, they had tidied everything up. There was like nothing left from the birth anywhere. They really took care of me. And then I had my follow-up visits, like one the next day and then the day after that. And I think I had one 3 days later. And then you go to the pediatrician and all of that. But yeah, I felt very taken care of. I loved my birth experience. I, of course, love my daughter. So that is my birth story for my first child. It was a positive home birth. I'm so glad with how it turned out. I know that not everyone is able to do a home birth. This is just me sharing my experience, and I hope you enjoyed this story. Reflecting back on it, it just brings me so much joy and like reminds me of all that love that I felt. And it was really nice sharing it with you. I hope you have a great day. Bye bye.